I hope that Senator Legarda is listening to this. We are on the opposite side now, and I know where she stands. So wala na itong there is no more gray area here for me about her. She is really an advocate of the other side. Ngayon, nakita ko na yung kanyang tinatayuan. Sana magpatuloy tayong personal na magkaibigan. Pero nakita ko na yung iyong political view at yung political, we are on the opposite of the political spectrum. If you run again next time, I'm sorry to say, good Senator, I will campaign against you.
Ayun.
Subaybayan ko rin kagabi yung sinabi ni Senator Loren Legarda. Naalala ninyo noong campaign na meron siyang schedule sa akin ng isang araw. Kinancel ko yon ng araw na yon nang dahil ayaw ko na siyang interviewin dahil sinuportahan siya ng kabag. So meron akong duda noon pa. But because he's a very close friend of mine since she became a senator, so I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Nagbago yung isip ko. Nung kinabukasan, tawag sila ng tawag, binigyan ko siya ng pagkakataon na magsalita. Ay, interview ko, dumating pa nga si BP Sara noon at binigyan pa nga siya ng bulaklak dahil birthday yata niya yon. Tapos, minura pa siya ng anak niya. Punti tayo sa kanya, naawa tayo sa kanya. But I already had doubts in her political views and leanings. Pero because she's a friend, I gave her the benefit of the doubt. So, yun ang nangyari sa ating interview sa kanya. At narinig ninyo yon. Now, it's very, very clear who she is to me.
Yes.
Wala na akong doubt sa kanya na kung anong political leanings niya at ang political views niya. So ako, gusto sa makipagdebate sa kagat, no? Pero hindi sila kumagat. Wala silang kagat. So, ito sana yung sasabihin ko.
Apo, Pastor.
Oo. Ngayon, sasabihin ko na dito sa atin. Bigyan niyo ako ng karampatang time.
Yes, sir.
Opo, sir.
At I hope that Senator Legarda is listening to this. From all the collation of my information from many different sources, from the beginning na itong salot na to ay pinag-aralan ko na rin. So na-collate natin itong lahat through the many sources that we have, the NTF-ELCAC people and all of you, Secretary Alan Capuyan and many others. I hope that Senator Legarda is listening to this because right now I know where she is in the political spectrum of the things that are happening. We are on the opposite side now, and I know where she stands. So wala na itong there is no more gray area here for me about her. She is really an advocate of the other side. So I hope that she is listening, and I would like to give this synthesis and reminder to her and to the nation. Basic synthesis, reminders on the basic framework of strategic, operational, and tactical components of the CPP, NPA, NDF. Number one, the strategic political line of the Communist Terrorist Group, or CTGs, or the CPP, NPA, NDF is seizure of political power through the violent overthrow of the existing government by way of the principal form of armed struggle that is mainly waged at the countryside as a guerrilla operation, but with the consistent support of the urban operations through the use of parliamentary struggle, political operations, sectoral and bureaucracy infiltration, and international network support operations. Number two, the strategic direction of the CTGs or the criminal terrorist group is to establish a socialist system in the country towards eventual communist rule in the entire new government system. Number three, the CTGs or the CPP and PNDF transition operations is their so-called two-stage revolution. That is the Democratic Coalition government during the so-called national liberation phase. And shortly thereafter, upon seizure of political power at the national scope, there shall commence a more bloody and violent second phase, which is the socialist revolution for consolidation of communist rule in the government.
Correct.
Establishment of dictatorship of the proletariat or communist rule in the entire government controlled by the CPP. This strategic political line as the National Democratic Revolution, so-called, remain the same for the entire CPP and PNDF for over 50 years already. Number five, this communist terrorist group's strategic military line mainly being implemented by the NPA is protracted People's War or the PPW by way of guerrilla warfare tactics that aims to encircle the cities from the countryside through their operational orientation line as from weak and small to big and strong, advancing wave upon wave by way of ever widening and ever deepening mass base building through the use of extensive and intensive guerrilla tactics operations in order to gradually encircle the cities and town centers in the conduct of a nationwide protracted people's war. Number six, the military line operational orientation has three major tactical and strategic components, namely mass-based, sectoral organizations, agrarian and economic struggles, social benefits through mass movement, and armed struggle through combined guerrilla warfare operations. For the last 50 years, this military line and its operational orientation, as well as the components, have remained the same for the entire CP, NPA, and DF. Number seven, the CTG's strategical doctrinal guide in their strategic aim of seizing the political power is the operational combination of armed struggle as their main focus and principal form, with secondary but inseparable and inherent support requirement of conduct consistent urban infiltration operations through secondary and complementary in nature, but indispensable in the tactical and strategic value. Number eight, the CTGs, or these communist terrorist groups, armed operations, and urban infiltration are only distinct in character and form, but these are inseparable in operational conduct in the strategic direction. Both the armed guerrilla operations and the urban infiltration operations are being simultaneously implemented by the CPP, NPA, and DF. Number nine, this communist terrorist group, CPP, and DF, doctrinal operational orientation and strategic directions are mandatory organizational doctrines and programs that have not changed for the last decades, which shows the basic characteristics of the CPP, NPA, and DF are firm and resolute in their strategy, but always flexible and adaptable in their tactics, and their tactics always serve the end of their strategy, not the other way around. Number 10, the CPG's electoral and bureaucracy infiltration operations, including their main urban infiltration operations of sectoral, urban, and town center alliance and organizing activities. In the universities, schools, factories, communities, church institutions, government offices, other network support in the urban and town centers, including as well their Pistox framework tactics and international operations and international network support activities. All of these are tactical and operational components to the strategic direction of the CPP, NPA, and NDF, which is principally to seize political power by way of armed revolution in order to overthrow the present government and subsequently build the socialist system with the aim to establish and consolidate the communist rule in our entire country. Okay?
Pastor?
Therefore, number 11, all electoral, bureaucracy, and legal as well as international operations for infiltration, including the peace talks and negotiations, all of this must be viewed in the context of operational and tactical component operations of the CPP, NPA, NDF in order for them to strengthen and attain the CPP, NDF, MPA, NDF strategic direction. Listen to this, Senator Legarda. To seize political power through primary use of violence and terrorism in order to rule, but with the cover-up of deception and manipulation of their so-called urban operations that define the dual revolutionary tactics that the CPP, NPA, NDF do not openly admit to such.
Correct.
Number 12, overall, there can never be a successful strategic operational components for the CPP, NPA, NDF, their so-called party building, army building, and united front building. If they cannot successfully establish broad and deep thoroughgoing mass-based building operations, the three strategic and operational activities of the entire CPP, NPA, NDF are dependent on the level, scope, and depth of the mass base that they can build. Number 13, also, the CTGs, units, and organizations are only good as their cadres, and leaders. The party of the CPP is only good as its cadres. Likewise, the mass base alone cannot sustain the operational and organizational needs of the CPP and PNDF. The reason that they consistently pursue all means possible for their survival through mafia-type criminal syndicate operations using their terrorism capability for large-scale extortion activities, including their deceptive and manipulative revolutionary dual tactics for NGO racket operations, grants, donations coming from international networks, and their bureaucracy fund operations through their infiltrations of the government. And I think you have been infiltrated, good Senator. And number 14, all of this require the government that at all times possible, the state, the government must make the operational environment difficult for the CPP, NPA, NDF, and their collaborators, conspirators, difficult to survive. Such is mandatory for government to undertake. The government cannot just be reactive and at the receiving end of the operational and tactical initiatives of the enemies.
Yes.
Initiatives and favorable opportunities must be denied to the CPP, NPA, NDF, and their colluders, conspirators, and collaborators at all times. Maybe they are in Congress, maybe they are in the Senate, but wherever they are, we will deny them and their colluders this opportunity at all times. So ganyan ang aking gustong ipabot kay Senator Loren Legarda. At ngayon, nakita ko na yung kanyang tinatayuan. Sana magpatuloy tayong personal na magkaibigan. Pero nakita ko na yung iyong political view at yung political, we are on the opposite of the political spectrum. If you run again next time, I'm sorry to say, good Senator, I will campaign against you
Ayun.
because of your stand.